Hello everybody, it's me, Mrs. Kokenauer. I've got a great book to share with you today, and thanks to Patricia Polacco, one of my favorite authors and illustrators, we're going to get to read The Bee Tree together today. She has given us permission to read any of her books together and make recordings of them during this time, and I already read to you Thunder Cake, so if you haven't had a chance to listen to that, go back in this YouTube channel and listen to Thunder Cake. But today we're going to read The Bee Tree. I love her book. She always includes such interesting characters. The Bee Tree by Patricia Polacco. I'm tired of reading, Grandpa, Mary Ellen sighed. I'd rather be outdoors, running and playing. So you don't feel like reading, eh? Feel like running, do you? Then I expect this is just the right time to find a bee tree, he said, taking down a jar and putting on his lucky hat. What's a bee tree, Grandpa? Mary Ellen asked. Well, it's where the bees make their home. It's where they keep the honey. The sweetest in the land, Grandpa chirped excitedly. But we already have honey, Grandpa, Mary Ellen said. Ah, but not honey like this, her grandpa answered with a wink. Mary Ellen and her grandpa put on their coats and went outdoors. They walked down past the hollyhocks to the garden and found bees gathering pollen from the flowers. Hollyhocks are a type of flower. Her grandpa carefully trapped some in the glass jar, making sure not to hurt them. When he was sure that he had enough, he smiled and leaned close to Mary Ellen. They'll take the pollen back to the hive to make it into honey, and we'll be right behind them. Then he slowly loosened the lid of the jar and let one single bee escape. It stayed on the mouth of the jar for a moment, flew straight up, then buzzed toward the cornfield. Quick now, run, Grandpa called out as he began to chase the bee. Just then, Mrs. Goblock from down the creek way was walking baby Sylvester in his carriage. Mary Ellen and her grandpa ran by them. We're off to find a bee tree today, Grandpa shouted. I haven't done that since I was a girl, Mrs. Goblock said excitedly. May I come too? Grandpa motioned her to follow, and the three of them were off and running. Baby Sylvester laughed out loud as his carriage bumped and bounced through the rows of corn. Honk went a goose as it waddled after them. As they came from the cornfield and crossed Dykes Junction, Einar Tundevold came around the bend on his squeaky old bike. Where are you all going in such a hurry? He asked. A bee tree, Mary Ellen puffed as the foursome scurried by. Chasing a bee to its tree. This I would like to do also, he said as he stood up and pedaled faster. The wheels of his bike went tweddle, tweddle, squeak. Their boots slapped the ground. The buggy pitched and swayed, and the goose honked as they ran after that bee. The bee swooped down, stopped, held in midair, then circled past them and headed straight for the St. Joe River. Now, it's amazing that they don't lose sight of that bee. Olav Lundhagen, while strolling on the nearby shore with the charming Herman sisters, Petra and Dorma, looked up and noticed the commotion coming toward them. Where are you all going? He called out. To a bee tree we are going, Einar Tundevold puffed as he pedaled by. Can we come too? The two lovely ladies pleaded. Fast you'll have to run, Einar said. We don't care, let's go, the three shouted as they raced after him. Slap, bump, honk, tweddle, tweddle, squeak, thump, they all went as they sped down the road after that bee. Klondike Bertha Fitchworth, just back from an expedition in the Yukon, had car trouble next to the road. She looked up just in time to see everybody running by. You say you're after a bee tree, she shrieked. Zounds, that won't be easy. But Eureka, what an adventure! She sprinted along behind them. The bee dipped and soared as it made its way out of sight. Now, boys and girls, I want to ask you a question right now. I want you to draw a conclusion for me. Do you remember Grandpa put several bees in that jar? Why do you think he put several bees in that jar if he only let one out? Why might he need other ones? I know you're thinking. Do you think it's easy to lose sight of one bee? Maybe one bee might fly faster than they can run? Maybe that's why. Let's find out. But Grandpa carefully let another one out, and the chase was on again. Yep, they lost sight of one bee, but now they can chase the next bee that was in the jar. The noisy, merry bunch galloped up over Bird Talk Fellow Ridge, only to run smack dab into Fiduciary Longdrop's herd of goats. The goats bleated and bucked as the people clambered through them. "What ho!" Fiduciary called out. "You're going to scare me goats!" "A bee tree!" a voice called back. With that, Fiduciary tooted his flute, and he and his flock joined the chase. "Bounding Billies, this will be great," he said on a dead run. I wonder if the goats are going to come too. 3 traveling musicians looked up just in time to see a thundering stampede of goats, buggies, people, and bikes coming straight for them. "Why are they all running, Pa?" one of the boys asked his father. "We're after that bee," Grandpa said, pointing at the small dot in the sky. "It's leading us to a bee tree," Mary Ellen wailed as she streaked by them. "Come along," Klondike Bertha chortled as she huffed past. Now, let me tell you, Grandpa must be in really good shape if he is able to run that fast and keep up with everybody and keep up with the bee. I want you to make a prediction for me, boys and girls. Do you think they're going to find the bee tree? Do you think anybody's going to get stung by that bee? Let's make some predictions. Slap, bump, bleat, honk, twiddle, twiddle, squeak, bump, they went as they ran. Hoofs clattered, rows of corn were parted. Nothing really mattered but chasing that bee. They ran through Griner's Bluff and into Bishop's Meadow, around Dead Man's Tree, and then to Bird Talk Hollow. Man, they're running all over the whole countryside. Look at the parade of them going by. As they ran down the hollow, the bee took blinding speed and disappeared from their sight. They all stopped to catch their breath just in front of Dunk's woods. Grandpa handed the jar with the last bee in it to Mary Ellen, and she let it out. You guys knew why he had more than one bee. Whenever he lost sight of one, they would let out another one. Sure enough, it flew straight and low right into Dunk's woods. Maybe the bee tree is in Dunk's woods. "It's the bee tree," Grandpa whispered. "That's where the honey will be. But we'll need plenty of smoke." Smoke? Why do you think they need smoke? I wonder why they would need smoke to get honey out of a bee tree. Everyone set about to build a smoke fire from twigs and damp leaves. When the smoke had quieted the bees, Grandpa balanced on Einar's bicycle and reached into the tree. As he pulled out small pieces of honeycomb, he dropped them into some of baby Sylvester's spare clean diapers that Klondike Bertha was holding. Mary Ellen tied them into neat little bundles, and Mr. Lundhagen put them into the baby carriage. The musicians played merrily as the Herman sisters danced. Now, boys and girls, let me tell you why the smoke was needed. Smoke makes bees very, very sleepy, so he could put his hand in there without being stung. The bees had all fallen asleep because of the smoke. Otherwise, he would have gotten stung. You don't want to stick your hand into where a bunch of bees are. You would get stung. That's not a good idea. Grandpa invited everyone back to the house for baking powder biscuits, fresh brewed tea, and of course, the honey. There was music, dancing, tall tales, and raucous laughter as they all buzzed about the sweet adventure of that day. Now that was an adventure. It's really only an adventure you could take with a grandpa, or maybe a dad, because only grandpas know how to find bee trees, and grandpas are the only ones that really know how to set a fire to make the bees go to sleep. That is not something you would ever want to try with just kids. That's only a grandpa adventure. Grandpa took Mary Ellen inside away from the crowd. Now, child, I'm going to show you what my father showed me and his father before him, he said quietly. He spooned the honey onto the cover of one of her books. Taste, he said, almost in a whisper. Mary Ellen savored the honey on her book. That means she tasted it. There is such sweetness inside of that book, too, he said thoughtfully. Such things, adventure, knowledge, and wisdom. But these things do not come easily. You have to pursue them. Just like we ran after the bees to find their tree, so you must also chase these things through the pages of a book. Then he smiled and hugged her. Okay, so look, he's teaching her. Honey is sweet, and it was worth the long, long chase they went through that day. Spent hours searching for that honey, and it was worth it because honey tastes so good. Well, reading a book is worth it, no matter if it takes you hours to get through that book, even days to get through that book, because you can learn such things, adventure and knowledge and wisdom. It can make you smarter. It's really the only way to become smarter. And it's worth however hard it is. He smiled and hugged her. From that day on, Mary Ellen never again complained about her reading. She found it to be every bit as exciting as a wild chase through the Michigan countryside, and as sweet as the honey from a bee tree. Well, that's some adventure, isn't it? And like I said, I do not want you playing with bees or trying to catch bees. That's only an adventure you could go on with your grandpa or maybe your dad if they knew about such things. But it sure was fun to read about. That's one thing I love about books. You can read adventures that you've never had, maybe never will have, but you can read about them and enjoy them through those characters. This was a fun adventure to experience, wasn't it? A chase through the countryside to find a bee tree. It makes me in the mood to taste some honey, doesn't it you? I love Patricia Polacco books. The characters and the stories are so interesting. Thank you for listening with me today. I miss you. I love you. You're my favorite. Bye-bye.